Brian, it's great to see you, and I really appreciate you being here for part of our AI in Action series. So it's great to have you on board. I'd love to maybe just start to learn a little bit about Dunaway and your role there.
Yes, so Dunaway, we are a multidiscipline civil engineering, landscape design, and survey firm.
Hmm.
So we kind of cover all the bases except for architectural and mechanical design when it comes to commercial development. We have offices all across the state of Texas,
Hmm.
in all the major metroplexes. And my job at Dunaway is the VP of technology.
Hmm.
I actually have been a structural engineer all my career, and in the past 2 years, I transitioned into this role to try to push Dunaway into the future in regards to AI and technology.
That's great. Lots been made recently about this era of agents. 2026 seems to be the year of agents for sure. And I'd be curious, like, how are you thinking about agents inside Dunaway? And are there particular use cases you're interested in pursuing with agents?
Yes, we're looking at it very heavily because a lot of our work there's a lot of manual tasks of looking for things, trying to find information, processing information, just to any kind of engineering process. We're workflowing everything
Hmm.
and trying to find areas where we can plug in an agent so that our engineers can focus on our clients and their design instead of the monotonous lower level tasks that we'd rather not have them doing.
So looking at enabling your employees to be more productive, get more done, short circuit tasks inside the
Yes.
company, if I'm
Yep.
understanding. Do you also think about agents as something that might face a client or help with that sort of client engagement?
Client experience is a major piece of what we are trying to focus on over the next year or so. And one of those tools we want to create is a client portal, which we
Mm.
don't think many people have in the AEC industry, which we are in. And so we want to have a client facing access portal where they can keep up to date on all of their projects that they are working with us. And that includes any deadlines, any tasks we're working on, and invoicing. And all of that will be managed by multiple agents.
That's great. Now, I talk to a lot of customers, and they start thinking kind of function by function when they think about the agents they want to deploy. And it sounds like you've already started to deploy an agent. I'd love to hear more about it. Would you mind sharing it with us?
Yes. So one of the first agents we deployed was to focus on our engineers specifically because that's the majority of our company, and we wanted to tackle something that would allow them more time to focus on their design and clients. As an engineer myself, I knew that there were many hours wasted searching for information in very large PDFs, thousands of files, which dictate our design and can make or break a project if you are not using the latest and greatest information. And that compounds on itself because we work across hundreds of cities and jurisdictions, and they all have different requirements. And so if you're jumping from one city to the other, you need to make sure you're using the right information. So that was a very big task we needed to tackle, and that was one of the first ones we rolled out. We call that Agent Atlas. We figured that was the best way because we work across the state, and you can think of it as a map of information.
Yeah, that's great. And with Atlas, what's the feedback been so far? And have you seen the business results that you're hoping to achieve?
The feedback has been great. When we first introduced it to our engineers, they were very excited, ready to get in there and start using it. We have definitely seen the research time cut drastically. By our calculations, we expect to cut the research time by 90%
Wow.
in their day-to-day life.
Wow, that's amazing. So a 90% reduction. What do you expect your engineers will do with that extra time? Does it give them the opportunity to serve more clients, or what will they do with
I
that
would say
time?
it's two things, which is what we kind of set out to do, and that's the feedback we've received is more time to coordinate with our clients, with other
Mm.
consultants, and also QA/QC their documents. So basically, apply their engineering skills instead of searching through PDFs.
That's very powerful. Yeah, more time with clients sounds like a great outcome
Always.
in your
Yep.
industry. Yeah, absolutely. Now, let's talk maybe a little bit about how you built that agent, Atlas. How did you start down that path? What tools did you use, and how did that all work?
Of course. So we started with Copilot Studio as basically the base, as the brain. And in order to feed that information, it was actually quite a challenge we had to tackle. These codes and design documents are scattered throughout the internet. Most of the jurisdictions and cities are obviously public information, and they post that online. And right now, our engineers had to manually go to those city websites, download the code, make sure they're using the latest and greatest. So we started with automating that task. We built a Power Automate flow that had a browser use agent in the background that went and scraped every week. It would go and search these sites for the latest and greatest documents, download them to our tenant, and then we process them in Azure Foundry actually, and then fed it into Copilot Studio to present the information.
That's a great use case. And then how does an engineer actually access the brain of Atlas effectively? Like how do you enable it in the flow of their work?
Yes, so it's very important for us that they are receiving the information and they also know where it came from and it didn't come from somewhere else. So they're presented with a very easy form where they're describing what city or jurisdiction they're working in, and if they want to include any additional codes that don't have to do with the city or the jurisdiction. And once they select that, they can just start talking to the agent. The most critical thing for us is to provide citations and make them front and center because the agent does a really good job at summarizing the information, but we always point the engineers back to exactly where it found the information. And we also built our own custom PDF viewer that took them to the page that found it, but also highlighted it. So it was
Mm.
very quick and easy for them to find that information.
And have you made Atlas available in the tools that the engineers are already using, or is it a web portal? How does one access it?
Yeah, so that was one of the big things we actually like about Copilot Studio is we can push the agent directly to where they work, which for our company is Microsoft Teams. And
Mm.
so we were able to pin it directly to their sidebar in Teams right below their chats. And so it's right there just as if they're chatting with another coworker.
That's so cool. As you think about Atlas V Next, like what comes next? I'm curious. Do you have a set of things that you want to add over time, or do you feel like Atlas is complete and then the next step is automating other functions? How do you think
Yeah,
about that?
we want to expand onto this. We actually already have some ideas from our end users. They want to be able to add their own knowledge and basically
Mm.
make it self-learning because we get a lot of feedback from cities and jurisdictions that are not code related or design document related. They're actually just personal knowledge from uh, the employees at the city or jurisdiction. And so we're going to have a live knowledge base where our employees can add in additional information that's not included in the documents. And
Yeah.
so that will kind of be a feeding on itself.
I absolutely can see that. It's starting with a set of definitive information, that might come from the cities, but then building on the knowledge of the lived experiences of the engineers, and then you get this flywheel of
Correct.
knowledge and intelligence that makes you even more powerful and productive as you go forward. So that's a beautiful vision.
That's right.
Have you started thinking about actions, like adding actions into the agent? So not just sort of being a store of knowledge, which itself is quite powerful, as we've talked about, but even adding new capabilities, like enabling Atlas to go do work, on behalf of the engineers.
Yes, not we haven't done that with an Atlas, but we did do that with our first agent we rolled out, which is what we used to actually introduce our company to AI. And
Hmm.
it was a very similar agent where we provided it all of our company's uh, knowledge about processes, policies, and such, along with IT help desk information.
Hmm.
And within that agent, we built probably 20 to 30 tools that actually act for our employees. So if they needed to request a check or request a rental car, they are able to do that directly in that agent. And that process is completely done automated. It's completely automated, so no human actually has to be involved in the process.
I know that implementing and changing systems with AI can be tricky internally. There's a lot of stakeholders to navigate. There's a lot of hoops that you probably have to jump through. How did you manage that kind of process internally?
With these tools we're creating with AI, if anyone uses it one time, they quickly realize the benefit
Hmm.
and they don't really see why they would not use it. So it's a little bit different than in the past when you would create non AI specific tools, just because it's a new process for them to learn and it's just a pain point. But now with AI, the process you're rolling out is making their life so much easier. I'll also add that having the leadership in your company behind this as well is very important. Our leadership is all hands on deck when it comes to this. They want us pushing this forward. Without that, I could see it being very difficult for a company trying to roll out AI solutions.
Yeah, that resonates with me. When I talk to other customers, there's this combination of tops down leadership support with bottoms up enablement. And If you can get those two things right, you can really unlock a lot of transformation. But if you're missing either of those ingredients, it can be really tough.
Completely agree. I think exactly what you described is what we have here at Dunaway, which has been really fun to see.
Where does this all go next?
We're actually looking at our company as a whole and how can we completely streamline how we function as a company from beginning to end and implementing agents everywhere. It's very hard to create these point solutions in legacy systems. And so we're trying to look at it from a different lens and see what if we just rebuilt it from scratch and ran it through the paces.
That is exciting. I mean, I talk about something very similar with our customers, which is this idea of thinking about this as a system and not as individual point things.
That's exactly right.
And if you think about it from a systems perspective, you really have an opportunity to completely re-architect the way the company runs, which is really exciting and powerful. As you think about others outside of Dunaway that are on this same journey of transforming their business processes with AI, what advice would you share with them?
My advice would be to start building today. So essentially, when you stop listening to this, go start building with the tools, test out, prototype immediately. It is so easy to go from idea to finished product at this point that you just need to start building. And my other piece of advice would be to don't make the product perfect. Get it to an MVP and iterate it with your end users because it is so easy to iterate and republish your product with the bug fixes, with new features within 30 minutes. Especially within Power Platform, you can edit your Power App and push it back out within 10 minutes, and your end users already have it in their hands.
So number one, get out of analysis paralysis.
Yes.
Stay away from that. And then number two, don't let perfect be the enemy of good. Get to an MVP and iterate.
That's exactly right. Both of those are the key points.
Great advice. That's great advice. Wonderful. Well, Brian, I really appreciate you joining me today. It was great to hear about your story at Dunaway. Seems like you've had a lot of success already, and I can't wait to see what you're able to do over the coming quarters.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you.